Marcy, Skylight, Gray, Cliff, and Redfield done. Now the long walk back to the lodge. 3:55 a.m., just signed in. Santanoni Range, let's go. The wind is whipping here in the Seward Range today. Just finished the Macomb slide and my legs are on fire. Well, I fell victim to the floating logs again. Made it to the top of East Dix. Peak number 3 of 5 for today here in the Dix Range. Avalanche Pass. On top of Rocky Peak Ridge. It's like a hurricane up here. Rain and wind here on Tabletop. Whiteface, number 6. Muddy day here on Street and Nye for number 7 and 8. Sunny and blue on Haystack. Algonquin, up in the clouds, number 18. Gothics, number 22. Panther, number 38. Allen, number 45. 7:12 a.m. Big Slide, Adirondack 46er. You're listening to the 46 of 46 podcast. May 27th, 2018. After a great morning a week ago on Cascade and Porter, it was time for my second High Peaks hike, Phelps and Tabletop. My buddy Josh was coming with me today on this 12-mile hike with just over 3,800 feet of elevation gain. Our plan for the day was to hike from the Adirondack Lodge into Marcy Dam, then head towards Marcy via the Van Hovenberg Trail and decide on the day if we're going to split off and do Phelps first or second. Either way, both mountains have trail junctions off the Van Hovenberg Trail up Marcy, so we could decide on the day. We got to the lodge and signed in at 5:30 a.m., first sign-ins of the day. Turned on our headlamps and began our day in the dark. From the start, Josh was booking it fast down the trail, so I asked, "Why are you going so fast?" He responded, "Do you know how many times I've hiked into the Marcy Dam? We just need to get this portion completed as fast as possible." So for me, having never hiked into Marcy Dam, this was all new and unexplored territory. However, now looking back, I can't blame Josh for wanting to get it completed as fast as possible. Having done it so many times now, I get it. But being my first time, I enjoyed this portion of the trail quite a bit. It's a good warm-up. Winding through the woods, walking over a number of wooden bridges. Fortunately for me, Josh went first, so he caught most of the nighttime spider webs to the face. We soon completed the 2.3-mile trip to Marcy Dam. The sun started to rise as we made it to the dam, and being my first time there, it was truly a terrific sight. An awesome place at the base of various mountains, a huge river. It's great. We crossed over the bridge at the dam and then turned right to continue down the Van Hovenberg Trail. This trail runs along the Phelps Brook for a large portion. Some elevation is gained here, but it's pretty gradual as you wind your way through the woods along rocks and dirt. Once we came to the junction for the Phelps Trail, which used to have a sign but didn't have a sign on this day, we decided to finish with Phelps and hit it on our way back, which proved to be a good choice. So we continued along the Van Hovenberg Trail some, crossing over the Phelps Brook and continuing a gradual climb as the trail weaved its way through the Adirondack Forest, and we soon came to the Tabletop Trail Junction. At this point, we decided to stop for a minute and fuel up before the climb. I enjoyed a quick peanut butter and jelly, and then it was time to start climbing. Up until this point, not a ton of elevation has been gained yet, just a little bit. From this junction, it was only 0.7 miles to the summit. This was, however, my first time experiencing a herd path or an unmaintained trail, so it was quite a unique view. The trail in some places was very eroded and deep from foot traffic and water, and some places were extremely narrow. Fortunately, the trail was rather obvious due to the thousands of hikers that come up it every year, and my nerves of this unmarked trail concept were put to ease slightly. Of course, I was just following Josh, so I didn't need to navigate, and didn't even look at the map or trails before hiking today because I knew Josh was coming with me. A lesson I would learn through another hiker later in the day. Always read the map and know exactly where you're going before you hike. Do not be like me today. So we continued through the woods, climbing up the gradual muddy trail to Tabletop, walking on some rugged terrain, some slabs, some woods, and we soon came to the wooded summit of Tabletop Mountain, the 19th tallest high peak, standing 4,427 feet for high peak number 3. It was 8 a.m. and took us exactly 2.5 hours to summit from signing in. There are some views of Marcy at the summit, but today was very cloudy and there were no views, unfortunately. There is a wooden summit sign marking the top, reading Tabletop Mountain, and all of the unmaintained herd path mountain trails have these wooden signs at the summit, which are great. So we took our photo with the sign, as anyone would do, and we headed back down the herd path towards Phelps. Just before we got back to the Marcy Trail Split, we passed a couple going up, probably in their early 30s, our first sign of human life for the day. We exchanged pleasantries and continued on our way, and we made it to the Marcy Trail Junction in what felt like record time. Very quick down. And this is where my mind was blown. As we made our way down the Van Hovenberg Trail towards Phelps, we passed dozens and dozens of hikers headed towards Marcy. I knew that's where they were going because most of them asked us if we went to Marcy already. Having grown up in Lake Placid and seeing Marcy almost every day growing up, I never knew just how many people go up this mountain on a given day. And it was only May. Wasn't even July or August, it's May. And with the percentage of people hiking up the tallest mountain in New York State, I'd say around 50% of them were wearing the proper footwear and the other half, well, weren't. Way too many people hiking in tennis shoes and carrying just a Poland Spring water bottle. Yikes. I'm sure they're all going to make it to the top, I sarcastically said to Josh, and he responded, just wait until July. There'll be double the amount of people here every single day. One group of guys in particular I remember, probably college-aged, passed us, and Josh and I refer to one of these dudes as Sambas because he was wearing Sambas, no backpack, no water, and mud completely covering his feet up to his knees. He must have been having a rough time. Soon after we passed our Samba friend, we came across a woman that we refer to as Blue Jeans. Josh and my nicknames are quite literal in nature. But Blue Jeans was a woman who was hiking in blue jeans, sitting on the side of the trail smoking a cigarette and looking like death was unfortunately on her doorstep. No bueno. She was not looking great. Fortunately, she was with another person, but I would be shocked if they made it to the summit of Marcy. But hopefully they made it to the top. What do I know? Hopefully they had the time of their lives in the process. But if you're coming to hike the Adirondacks, there's plenty of smaller mountains that'll give you everything you want, from views to hikes to get your heart going. You don't have to just hike Mount Marcy, the highest mountain in the Adirondacks. There's plenty of other options. So we continued along the Van Hovenberg Trail towards Phelps, passing Marcy Rat after Marcy Rat, and we eventually came back to the Phelps Trail junction we passed earlier in the day. We took off our packs and fueled up for the mile hike to the summit. And while we were sitting here getting ready to head up Phelps, a young couple, probably in their mid-20s, passed us, and I saw the guy look at the trail and then think to himself and say, I think it's this way, as he continued on the Van Hovenberg Trail towards Marcy. At this point, I spoke up and said, Phelps left, Marcy and Tabletop to the right. And at this point, the guy sheepishly turned around and said, oh, thanks. It's this way, I guess. As they turned around to come back towards Phelps, slightly embarrassed. Then, like a middle school cafeteria when someone drops their lunch tray in front of everyone, Josh and I let out a big, oh, as he was slightly embarrassed and walked with his tail between his legs as they started up Phelps. Now, I should state, I very, very easily could have been this dude today because I didn't even look at the map before my hike and I was blindly following Josh. So as our friend was about to take his girl up Mount Marcy instead of Phelps due to his lack of preparation, I fortunately learned that lesson through this situation. So thanks to that dude for teaching me this valuable lesson early on in my 46er journey. Know the map and the trails and the junctions before you hit the trail. Lesson learned. Thanks, dude. Hopefully she didn't break up with you on the top of Phelps for leading her deep into the Adirondack Mountains in the wrong direction. Of course it could happen to anyone, but it shouldn't. So onward and upward. About 10 minutes after these two passed us, Josh and I began our hike up Phelps. Going up Phelps is a steep one. It's a real gasser. A lot of rock hopping and stepping over trees and small slab climbs and rock scrambles make for a real calf burner. A much different looking trail than Tabletop as well, which makes this combo of Phelps and Tabletop great because there's a good assortment of different terrains. Herd paths with muddy exposed roots everywhere on Tabletop, and Phelps has lots of rock hopping and rugged slab climbing. A great Adirondack hike. We passed a handful of people coming down the trail and we made it to the summit just under 35 minutes from leaving the trail split. Phelps Mountain, 4,161 feet elevation for high peak number 4. Phelps was named after a guide named Orson Phelps, known as Old Mountain Phelps, the man responsible for cutting the first trail up Mount Marcy, a fitting name of a mountain that has excellent views of Mount Marcy. It was very cloudy today, so we had some views, but mostly of lower elevations under the clouds, unfortunately. But while we were up at the summit, there was a nice family up there enjoying a hike, a couple of 46er patches on some backpacks, and a couple of kids, probably 10, 12 years old or so. Josh took a family photo for them, and then we both sat down and relaxed for a bit as the hard work of the day was accomplished. Josh likes to take off his boots and socks on the final summit, and so I followed suit since he said it's the best part of the hike, and it was pretty great, though it would prove to have consequences for me later. After about 10 minutes, we decided to head down the mountain after putting on a fresh pair of darn tough socks, my sock of choice. I highly recommend them. They're the best. We started the trip down Phelps towards the Van Hovenberg Trail, and about 5 minutes in, we passed our young couple friends again, and the dude jokingly said first beer's on him tonight. They were in good spirits, so she must have not broken up with him. But the steepness of Phelps definitely had my knees feeling it on the way down, the way they feel on most descents, but what I really started to notice was how terrible my feet felt. My shoes just didn't seem to fit right, and the bottoms of my feet felt like I was being stabbed with a knife every time I stepped on a rock or a root. It was terrible. I said, "Josh, do your feet feel terrible?" And he responded with an enthusiastic, "Nope." Great, so it's just me. As each step went, they started to feel worse and worse. Man, this was rough. Why do they hurt so bad? So much worse than I've ever experienced. Clearly, it's because my feet swelled up by taking my boots and socks off for 10 minutes, but I wouldn't realize this until a couple hikes from now when this sharp bottom of my foot pain would happen again. So we made it back to the Marcy Dam and crossed via the low water crossing this time around. All we had left was the 2.3-mile flat woods trail back to the Adirondack Lodge, which would have been a piece of cake if every time I stepped on a rock or a root I didn't feel like someone was stabbing me in the bottom of my foot. But eventually we made it back to the parking lot and signed out at 12:35 p.m., totaling our day at 7 hours and 5 minutes, car to car. A great day in the mountains. Another successful day in the woods here on my second High Peaks hike, where I summited Tabletop and Phelps for peaks numbers 3 and 4 on my journey to summit all 46 high peaks in one summer. I wouldn't be able to hike a high peak again until July due to leaving home for almost 6 weeks for work, but throughout June I was able to hike many smaller Adirondack mountains on the weekends like Hurricane, Pitch Off, Big Crow, Baxter, Catamount. But I had plans to take July off from work and hike as many high peaks as I could. I was very optimistic about accomplishing my goal. July is the month I'm waiting for. So next time on 46 of 46, Josh and I will head up Whiteface and Esther on July 1st, a hike that will really test both my legs and my lungs. Next time on 46 of 46. Remember to always leave no trace, do the rock hop, and if you carry it in, carry it out. See you on the trails.